All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started if you guys would like. I hope that everyone can hear me all right. My name is Camille Abdel-Jawad. I am actually your instruction and outreach librarian here at Park University, as well as an assistant professor. And I am so thrilled to be here with you all today for How To Tuesday, which is all about citations and plagiarism. And this workshop is really designed for you to get support from the library about how do we create citations, how do we ensure we aren't accidentally plagiarizing our sources, and how can I ensure that I am doing my due diligence to really cite my sources correctly. And so today we're going to be going over all of that. We will also have some time for questions at the end. So you can kind of see this is what we'll be talking about today. We're going to start with what is plagiarism. So, what exactly defines plagiarism and why do we need to cite our sources? We'll also discuss, how do we avoid plagiarism? How do we correctly cite our sources? I'm going to offer some resources to help you. We have so many resources here at the library that you may or may not be aware of. So we're going to kind of go over what kind of resources we have available, as well as where to get help if you need additional assistance, either from me or from one of our other amazing services here on campus. And then again, at the end, we'll have time for some questions. So if you have questions, you can send them in the chat, or you can unmute at the end and we'll discuss all of them. I want to make sure you guys all have an opportunity to ask whatever you need to in order to be successful today. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. We're going to kind of kick off our presentation today with thinking, what is plagiarism and why does it matter? But to kind of begin, we're going to kind of think not so much about plagiarism, but citations. Why do we cite? So plagiarism really, at its heart, is an absence of citing. It's not citing your sources, or not citing or giving credit where credit is due. That's really what this is all about. When we utilize other information, when we utilize knowledge from other people, whether that's through a video or a photo or a journal article, whether that's peer reviewed or maybe it's a news article, whenever we gather information for any of our classes or any of our presentations, we want to make sure we're giving credit where credit is due. We're saying, this person is an expert in this. They wrote this amazing article about it, or they published all of this information about it. And that's how I learned about it. So why do we have to do this? One, we want to make sure that we're attributing, we're giving credit where credit is due. But also, this is a way to show your instructor, to show whoever you are presenting this to, whether that's, it's for a formal grade with your class, or even just with family and friends, saying, I'm not leaning only on my own understanding. I'm leaning on this base of, scholarly information. I'm getting my sources from an expert rather than just from my own understanding. So that is why we cite. That is why we want to avoid plagiarism. Obviously, when you are in school, we don't want to plagiarize because we want to make sure you're doing your own authentic work. You're, earning this degree that you're working on. But in the broader scope of life, we always want to make sure we are attributing or giving credit where credit is due to any kind of information we utilize. So to kind of test your guys' knowledge before we get started, we're going to go ahead and do a little Zoom poll. So if you're here live with us, if you're watching back, no problem. We'll kind of go over these questions if you're watching the recording, but I've just launched a Zoom poll for us. So it should pop up on your Zoom screen. And I want you guys to answer these 3 questions. And, if you aren't sure, there's always an answer that says not sure. So feel free to select that one. This is totally anonymous. I won't be calling you out for your answers. I just kind of want to see where are we at as far as knowledge of whether something is plagiarism or not. So I'll give you guys just maybe 1 or 2 minutes to read through these 3 questions and say, yes, this is plagiarism, or no, it's not plagiarism. And then we'll go through it all together at the end. Awesome. It looks like someone's already submitted their answers. Great job, you guys. We'll just give you guys maybe 30 more seconds to finish up your thoughts here, if you have not already. Right. All right, thanks to everyone for participating in our poll here. Again, if you're watching on re-record after the words, we're kind of going to go through these questions together so that we can kind of assess. This is our pre-test, so there's no worries if you got the answer right or wrong, but just thinking to ourselves, you know, this is an area we can grow in. So our first question is, all three of these questions are framed as, is this plagiarism? And you just need to give a yes or no answer. So our first question is this plagiarism? A student writes a research paper with a bibliography, but no in-text citations. Now, if you're new to citations or you're new to citing your sources, you're new to academia, higher education, college in general, you might not even know what the difference is between a bibliography and an in-text citation. And that's okay. At the library, we want to meet you wherever you're at. We're going to talk about all of that later in this presentation. But there is a difference, right, between the bibliography and the in-text citations. And we're kind of split right here on our answers. Some of us said yes, some of us said no, and some of us said not sure. And actually, this is plagiarism. So when we create a research paper and we have the bibliography, that's a really important step, right? We want to make sure that at the end we say, okay, here's all the information and where I got it from. But without the in-text citation to point to where you got that information in your actual paper, it can be hard for our instructor or for whoever is reading your paper to know exactly where you got that information. So we need both an in-text citation and a bibliography, which we'll talk a lot more about as we continue with this presentation. All right, so our second question is this. A student is doing research and wants to use information that they found in an article. So they put the text in their own words, the information that they found from doing research. So is that plagiarism? Again, we were kind of split on this one, although more of us said no. And actually, this is also plagiarism. This is plagiarism, and it really is tricky for students sometimes. I think that there's this huge misconception among students, and oftentimes among, if you're straight out of high school, among high school teachers, is we kind of like to say, oh, but I put it in my own words. So then I'm not, taking their words, so it's totally fine if I utilize it. And this is actually a really important skill, right? It is called synthesizing, right? We're taking the information from the research and we're saying, okay, I'm understanding that information and I'm taking it and I'm putting it in my own words and giving it in my presentation or in my paper, which is great. Don't misread this. That is a really good skill to have, and it's really important as a researcher. However, we still have to attribute or give credit where credit is due to whoever you got that information from. Again, paraphrasing or putting something in your own words is not a bad thing. It's a really important skill. We still have to attribute. We still have to say, okay, all of this information came from this source. All right, and our last question is this plagiarism? A student wrote a paper for a class in the fall and reuses it with some changes for a class in the spring. And again, we are kind of split on this one. Some of us said yes, some of us said no, and a few of us said not sure. And this actually is also plagiarism. This is kind of a tricky quiz, right? They were all three plagiarism. And this last one is really hard for students sometimes, because I think a lot of students think, oh, but it's my own work. How can I, plagiarize my own work? It's mine, I own it, I get to distribute it. And that's absolutely a fair argument, right? It is your own work and it is absolutely your intellectual property. However, what we want to do while we're at Park is really challenge ourselves to put our best academic foot forward and make sure we're creating original content for every single assignment we're doing, unless your instructor has instructed you otherwise, right? Sometimes we get essays and we like to build upon them within the same class. That's all good. But we want to make sure that every opportunity we have to showcase our knowledge, we are doing so. Can you write about the same topic in multiple different essays? Absolutely. But we shouldn't take, one essay that we wrote for one class and try and make it fit to another topic in another assignment in another class. And really for that, when we think about that, we're kind of taking something that's pre-existing and twisting it and changing it and trying to make it fit to this new assignment, rather than taking the assignment and putting our best academic foot forward and saying, okay, what do I need to do for this assignment? So that's actually something we call self-plagiarism, right? So we would want to make sure we are doing our very best academic original work every single time. Awesome. Well, I hope that you guys kind of enjoyed that poll. We're able to learn a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and go through all of this in more detail with our workshop here. So there are three main types of plagiarism to kind of review what we talked about. Using someone else's work or ideas, that's a pretty straightforward one, right? Paying someone to write an essay obviously is plagiarism. Using ideas or an essay you found online, obviously plagiarism. These are the kinds of things we usually think of. Taking tests or exams online with classmates. But there's also, plagiarism that's accidental plagiarism, right? You're not trying to, but sometimes we just aren't super aware or super knowledgeable about what it means to cite our sources, or when we need to cite our sources, or how we need to cite our sources. And that comes with paraphrasing without credit. Again, paraphrasing is a great tool to have as long as we're giving credit. Not using InText citations like that first example, or otherwise just not giving credit where credit is due. And then we have, again, self-plagiarism, reusing an essay you wrote for a different class, repurposing information instead of putting our best academic foot forward and really trying to adjust or trying to create essays that are for the assignment at hand, rather than taking an assignment and making it try to work for this new class. Awesome. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of plagiarism, what it looks like, how we do it. And again, thinking about accidental plagiarism, as my experience as both an instructor here at Park, but also a librarian, most of the time students are accidentally plagiarizing. It's not intentional. It's not like they're just, I'm going to cheat on this essay, so I'm going to go grab an essay from online. It's more of that accidental plagiarism that we really want to make sure students are aware of, so that we can continue to grow as students and make sure we're doing things the correct way. A lot of that comes with how to cite my sources correctly. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk a little bit about that right now. How do I avoid plagiarism and cite my sources the right way the first time? There's three main types of citations that you will likely be asked to create based on, what your major is or what class you're in. Those would include MLA, APA, and Chicago. These are our three most common types of citations that we will be asked to create. And I like this meme over here. One does not simply copy and paste without citation. And again, there's nothing wrong with copy and pasting a quote, right? We could say, oh, this quote is so prolific from this research, I absolutely want to use it to support and booster my argument. That's great. The only thing is that we have to attribute, or we have to give credit where credit is due. So I don't want this to stifle you, right? This is all about creating your strongest, best argument for your assignments or for your classes, but also acknowledging that there are other people who have had all of this knowledge and expertise in this field, and that's where you got that knowledge from. Adding a citation does not diminish your argument. I think that's a huge fallacy that students have. Like, if I cite this, then it won't be as strong of an argument, or my teacher won't think that I'm thinking critically or whatever. When in fact, being able to say, I don't know much about this, so let me go to an expert who does know a lot about this, and let me correctly cite how I got that information, absolutely shows that you are thinking critically. Okay, so what's the difference between in-text citations and a bibliography? These are two different things, right? So a bibliography is your works cited or your references at the end of your paper. That could look like creating a list of all of the resources you utilize. We'll take a look at that in just a second. It depends on, the type of citation that you're using, MLA, APA, Chicago, and others that you may be asked to use. They all look a little bit different, but it's the list of all the resources at the end. Your in-text citations are your small little in-text parentheses that say, okay, this actual sentence is from this body of work. So if I took a direct quote from my favorite New York Times article, in parentheses, I would need to write the author of the New York Times article to demonstrate that this is actually, this quote right here, or this sentence right here is actually from a different source. Now, why do we need both, and what's the difference? So I like to kind of illustrate it with a map here, okay? So if we think about our bibliography and our in-text citations, our bibliography is this map legend right here. It's the list of all the places that are on this map. The in-text citations are the map itself with all of the symbols that are corresponding to the legend here, okay? Now, with one without the other is meaningless, right? We can't just have a map legend with no map. That would be crazy, right? We'd be like, okay, but what is this pointing to and where can I find these things? And we can't have a map with symbols on it without knowing what those symbols mean. That's also meaningless, right? So we have to have both in order for either of them to make sense. Right here, you can see, this sun icon designates where Buenos Aires are in Argentina. So without both of these, we don't really know where that is. So your bibliography is this map legend, and your in-text citations are these little symbols, right? We're saying, okay, this is the quote and where I'm putting it. It's kind of like an abbreviated citation. If I have my favorite New York Times article quote and I have the mini citation in text, then your instructor can say, okay, let me go down to the bibliography to learn more about that source. And then I can find that source, just like we would with the legend, with saying, okay, I know that I want to learn more about what this sun means. So let me go over here to this map legend and find where the sun is so I can know what this designates. So that's how I like to illustrate in-text versus bibliography for my classes. All right, so one thing that I love to share with students is Zotero. And you may have heard of Zotero before, but this is such an amazing program. Zotero is completely free, and I mean actually free. There's no subscription, there's no hidden costs anywhere. And it really helps you to create a bibliography and in-text citations really easily. So I'm going to actually give you guys a small demonstration. We do have a full workshop on how to use Zotero actually live on our webpage right now. If you go to the link in our Google Drive that I just submitted, but I will send again in the chat just in case you missed it. If you go to that folder, there is a list of links that I'm going to be talking about today. And one of them is Citations Made Easy Zotero Workshop. And if you click on that link, you'll be able to see the entire Zotero workshop that I've already done and created for you that you can utilize to learn more about Zotero in general. But I'm going to give you guys just a quick view of what Zotero looks like. So I'm going to stop my share really quick. And pull up Zotero here. All right. So this is Zotero. This is what it looks like. The way that we can put these resources into our library. So there's a lot of different ways that we can add to our library here. You see I have 4 different sources already in my library. And the full workshop will go over exactly how you can add all your sources in a more in-depth way. But you can see here, when I click on one of my resources within my library, I have all of this information in here. But that's not even the best part, you guys. The best part is that when I'm writing my article, or writing my paper, or writing my presentation, if I wanted to put InText or InText citations or a bibliography into my Zotero, or excuse me, into my paper, I can just do it directly from Word. So for an example, this is an example. And let's say I did this quote and I wanted to cite my sources. All I have to do is go up to this tab that says Zotero and then press add/edit citation. And it will kind of prompt me to pick a citation style. I'm going to pick APA 7. And then it's going to pull up this red bar right here, and it's going to ask me to type in, who is the author, which citation are you wanting to pull? So I can take a look at my Zotero and say, okay, I'm looking for this one, which was written by someone with the last name of Sachs. And I can select this one. And when I press enter, it's going to put it directly into my essay like this, with the InText citation. And so all I had to do was search for it. You can rely on Zotero to be accurate with whatever kind of citation style you want, whether that's APA, MLA, Chicago, or whatever. And then at the end, I could do my references and add my bibliography in here, and it will automatically add in my references. This is such a valuable tool for you all, and I hope that you'll take advantage of it and check out our citation and plagiarism citation workshop, the Zotero Made Easy workshop for it, and that you'll learn more about how to utilize this program, because it's an awesome program. I personally use it in my actual research and scholarship as a professor here. So it's definitely got my stamp of approval, and I hope that it will be helpful for you all. All right, so we'll go back to our workshop here. The most important thing to remember, regardless of what you're doing, is just to give credit where credit is due. If you're ever unsure of whether you need a citation, I always say err on the side of more rather than err on the side of less, right? If you're not sure if you need to cite something, always just go ahead and cite it, because you always want to make sure you're giving credit where credit is due. All right, so what resources do we have available to help you as a student? That's a wonderful question. I think a lot of times students feel very lost, because I think, plagiarism is a hot button topic, right? We don't want to ask too many questions because we don't want to be, seen as someone, oh, maybe they'll commit plagiarism, or, there's a really significant consequences to plagiarism within our university, like, failing an assignment, failing a class, being expelled, things like that. But I would much rather all of our students ask for help or ask for guidance as they cite their sources, rather than just trying to figure it out on their own and then accidentally committing plagiarism, right? So we want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to try and find help when we need it. So the resources that we have here at Park that I really want to highlight are 3 different ones. The first is our Academic Success Center. And you guys all should have a Canvas course, actually. I'm going to pull up Canvas for us. And you should all be in this course already. It's called Park Tutoring and Success Services. And if you go to that Canvas course, you'll actually be brought to all the different options for you to get help. And the one that I'm going to highlight today is the writing help page. Now, there are 2 different ways that you can get help writing a paper. You can actually just submit your paper for a tutor to look over. You could specify that you want to check your citations, that you want help with plagiarism or with citing your sources, and they would be happy to help you with that. You can do that through this link right here that says submit papers using our writing submissions course. And, the other option is to schedule a virtual appointment with a writing tutor. If you feel like you're struggling with citations and want some serious one-on-one help with how do I understand citations, what do those citations look like, you'll definitely want to make an appointment. If you go to this that says go to Success Resources Appointments, it will bring you to this link where you can actually schedule an in-person or virtual appointment with a tutor. So this is going to be helpful, especially if you're not here in the Parkville area. I'm coming to you from our Parkville campus, but really this is a resource for all students, regardless of age, location, current education status, anything like that. This is an accessible resource for all of you. And if you scroll down to where it says writing, you can either make a 30-minute or 60-minute appointment with a writing tutor, depending on your needs. And they have really great availability. You can kind of pick from different tutors and see which kind of time slots are available here. All right, so that's our first resource. Our other resource that I would like to show you guys is our library guide. So if you go to our homepage, library.park.edu, you can actually go to this second tab here that says library guides. And then if we go down to resources for students, you can see that we have this second guide that's labeled Citing and Writing Resources. This is going to be the hub for you to find so many different kinds of citing and writing resources. All of these links, again, are on that Google Doc page that I shared with all of you. So feel free to go ahead and click on those and kind of explore that. But this is going to be a great resource for you. You can see that we have different tabs along the top. It already links you to the Zotero tutorial, how to install Zotero, how to get started with it, as well as the workshop that I did on it. And then if you hover over citation resources, you'll see that we have a different guide for every single main popular citation style. So if you're wanting to learn how to use APA, we have all of these resources that are helpful, including, essay format, what font should I use? How do I do headers? How do I, understand what is an InText citation? Things like that. We also have different tabs up at the top. And references, we have examples here. So reference list examples, if you wanted to see what does a reference list look like? This is the InText citation, and then this is what the reference list entry would look like. We also have an annotated sample paper that was from another resource from the handbook for APA. And you can kind of see that this is an example paper that would be helpful. How do I make a title page? What does that look like? All of that information is on here for all the different kinds of citation styles that you'll be asked to do generally here at Park. If you're in a more niche discipline, you might have a specialized resource or, a specialized citation style. But for the most part, you'll likely be using APA, MLA, or Chicago. We also have a tab over here that says preventing plagiarism. So over here, we have so many more resources that I don't have time to cover today that will help you as you kind of navigate plagiarism, accidental plagiarism, how to cite your sources, and why we're citing them. We want to give ourselves credibility. We want to establish, where we're getting information from instead of relying only on our own understanding. This also shows you the swag technique, which I love the swag technique. I think it's a great way to really kind of show how do I even introduce an InText citation? How do I even introduce incorporating my sources into my research paper here? And swag is, you can see in this graphic right here, swag is short for, it's an acronym for several steps, but this video is an excellent video on how do I even, start to begin to do these kinds of things, like adding in research to my paper. How do I begin to add in direct quotes? How do I set the stage, but also, synthesize and bring that InText citation further, things like that. This is a great resource for you. And then, we have all kinds of other resources. This is just barely skimming the iceberg of our citations and resources guide. And again, this is a great place to look for additional ways to really hone your craft as a researcher, but also as a writer and as a student. All right, so we'll kind of just go back. The other thing that I wanted to show you all is our citation generator. If we go to our library homepage again here, we'll go back here. And then let's say we were going to find an article on pirate search. So let's say we are looking for an article on cats, my favorite animal. And we were tasked by our instructor to find some peer-reviewed articles on our topic, and we limited it to peer-reviewed journals. If you're not familiar with Pirate Search or how to find library resources, there's more information about that on our website, or feel free to contact me. But we found this really awesome peer-reviewed article. It's perfect. Exactly what we're looking for. We want to use it in our paper. One thing I want to show you guys is that through Pirate Search, if you go over here to this right-hand side where it says tools, and you scroll down to where it says cite, it's actually going to generate the citation for you. You can see there's lots of different types of citations, but if we wanted, APA, we can just pull the citation right from here. Again, this is the bibliography citation, so not our InText citation. You'll still need to remember, how do I create an InText citation? But this will help you at least get started with that bibliography citation. And this is a really underutilized resource for students. I don't think they always realize that this is over here. And this is available for anything that you find in Pirate Search or in any of our databases, regardless of whether it's Pirate Search or one of our other ones. We all have this opportunity to cite using this tools bar over on the side, or sometimes it's on the top, or in other locations if it's a different database, but this is available for you, at least as somewhere to get started. All right. So those are some of our resources that we have available here at Park, the ASC, library guides, and citation generators through our database, Pirate Search, and our other databases at Park. All right, so that is actually all of the information that I have for you guys today. I want to open up the chat for any questions that you guys might have. Any ways that I can help you would help you navigate citations, questions about plagiarism or about differences between InText or citation, things like that. Feel free to either put those in the chat or unmute, and I would be happy to answer those for you. How do I properly cite an author within another author's paper? That is a really excellent question. So this is something that we get, it's kind of in the weeds, right? So what Anthony is asking is, if I'm reading like a peer-reviewed article and that peer-reviewed article has cited someone else, and how do I cite that? My suggestion for you would be, instead of citing the article who is citing someone else, which you can do, I would suggest going and finding that original article. And the reason for that is this: when we cite someone else citing someone, right? Sometimes things get lost in translation. If I was, doing a research paper, I would want to make sure that that scholar who is being cited, that their information is being taken in the correct context, right? Because we all interpret things. We all interpret, what someone is saying, what someone is, how they're presenting information, which could be true or could be our, perspective, right? We all look at things differently, and all of our worldviews is shaped by, our own experiences. So of course you can cite someone else citing someone. And the way to do that is actually, it's kind of a tricky citation format, especially that InText citation, which I can send you the link. I'll put it in the chat, to Purdue OWL, which they talk about this how to do that. But my recommendation would truly be to go and find that article, which shouldn't be difficult. Just go down to their bibliography, find the article that they have cited, and go through and say, okay, where did this quote come from? What context is it in? And honestly, it might be also just another good source for you to utilize, because obviously it's, you know, on that same topic. So it might be another source for you to add to your repertoire. But yes, let me find you this really quick because I know exactly where it is. But did that help, Anthony? Awesome. Oh, perfect. Go Chiefs. I know. Awesome. Let me pull this link here. All right. So this is under citing indirect sources. Anthony, and the way it is you would put whoever wrote it, the actual article first, and then as cited in so-and-so's article. And I'm putting that in the chat right now. If we have no more questions, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who joined us today in person live, or will be joining us later via re-recording. But if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I can direct you to any of these resources. We can find a time to get together via Zoom. We could do anything like that. Feel free to shoot me an email, to give me a call. I would love to work with you individually or refer you to another resource that might be helpful for you. And again, I am your instruction knowledge librarian. So if you have any other questions about research or library resources, of course I can answer those as well. And I would be so thrilled to work with all of you. So thank you guys so much again for coming today. I hope you'll join us next month for our next How To Tuesday. All the information all about that is again on our library website. You can find all of our upcoming events up there. And I hope to see you all again soon. Thanks so much for coming.